The Galactic Empire's Grand Hall was a masterpiece of alien engineering, a cavernous chamber of cold steel and pulsing blue lights. Towering arches framed holographic displays that cycled through alien propaganda. At the center of it all, chained and bloodied, stood John Warner. His once pristine diplomatic uniform was torn and smeared with crimson, a stark contrast to the mocking elegance of his captors. Chancellor Varkin loomed above him, his amphibious visage twisting into something resembling a smirk. "A human," he said, his voice a guttural growl. "Fragile, predictable, and now powerless. Did you truly believe you could negotiate with us, little envoys?" John spat blood onto the polished floor, lifting his head with a grim smile. "I thought you might be smarter than this, Varkin, but arrogance seems to be your species' defining trait." The chamber erupted in laughter from the assembled alien dignitaries. Each jeer was a knife twisting deeper into John's pride, but he maintained his composure. His cybernetic left hand, a relic from Earth's wars, remained limp at his side, seemingly inert. Beneath its surface, however, a hidden mechanism had been activated moments earlier, a beacon transmitting a coded SOS. Varkin stepped closer, his elongated fingers tapping rhythmically against his ceremonial staff. "Your defiance is amusing, but futile. Earth is nothing but an upstart in the galaxy, a mere flea that we will crush underfoot. Your death will serve as a message." John leaned forward, chains clinking softly. "The thing about humans," he said, his voice calm but laced with steel, "is that we don't die quietly." The Chancellor's smirk faltered for a fraction of a second, but he quickly recovered, raising a webbed hand to silence the room. "Prepare the execution platform," he commanded. "Let us show the galaxy what becomes of those who dare challenge the Empire." As the guards hauled John toward the platform, he replayed the events that had brought him here. He had been dispatched to negotiate the release of several captured human settlers, a seemingly straightforward mission, but the ambush had been swift and brutal, leaving him injured and alone. Yet even as the situation deteriorated, John had stayed calm. This wasn't his first encounter with death, and he knew better than to panic. The guards shoved him onto the platform, chaining him to a central pillar. Overhead, a massive holographic display flickered to life, broadcasting the scene to countless systems under the Empire's control. The executioner, a hulking brute with metallic implants, approached, brandishing a weapon that crackled with ominous energy. From his vantage point, John could see the faintest glimmer of movement in the distance, a shadow against the backdrop of the chamber's high windows. A flicker of hope stirred within him. They had received his signal. Varkin raised his staff, addressing both the audience in the chamber and the billions watching across the galaxy. "Let this be a lesson to all who defy us. The human's defiance ends here." The executioner raised his weapon, and the air in the chamber seemed to freeze. John locked eyes with Varkin, his smirk returning. "You might want to reconsider," he said, his voice steady. "It's not too late to back down." Before Varkin could respond, the chamber's walls shuddered with a deafening explosion. The windows shattered inward, raining shards of alien crystal across the room. The faint flicker of movement John had seen earlier materialized into the unmistakable silhouettes of Earth's elite response team. Their black armor gleamed under the dim lights, each soldier moving with lethal precision. Chaos erupted. Alien guards scrambled to respond, but the humans were too fast. A sniper's shot rang out, taking down the executioner before he could deliver the killing blow. Smoke grenades hissed, filling the room with a choking haze that disoriented the alien defenders. John could barely make out the figures of his rescuers, but their efficiency was unmistakable. Every movement was calculated, every shot lethal. From the smoke emerged a tall figure, Commander Nathan Felix. His sharp features were partially obscured by his helmet, but his commanding presence was undeniable. He moved straight for John, cutting through his chains with a precision blade. "You're late," John said, his voice tinged with dry humor. Felix offered a rare smirk. Had to make an entrance. As the chaos intensified, John was quickly briefed on the plan. The team had infiltrated the Empire's capital city, taking out key defenses along the way. Their mission wasn't just to rescue him. It was to send a message. Humanity would not be underestimated. Varkan, now cornered but defiant, bellowed orders to his remaining guards. Kill them. All of them. His voice was tinged with desperation, the earlier confidence evaporating in the face of the human assault. Felix turned to John, handing him a sidearm. Feel like joining the fun? John gripped the weapon, the weight familiar in his hand despite the years he'd spent away from combat. Thought you'd never ask. Together, they fought their way through the chamber, the human team systematically dismantling the alien forces. John's mind raced with the implications of the attack. This was no longer about diplomacy. It was about survival and sending a clear message to the galaxy. As the dust settled and the last of the alien guards fell, Varkan stood alone, trembling with rage and fear. Felix approached him, his weapon trained on the alien leader. "You made a mistake," he said, his voice cold. "Underestimating us was your first. Thinking you could humiliate Earth was your last." John stepped forward, his gaze locking with Varkan's. "This is what happens when you mock humanity." The faint sound of distant explosions signaled that the battle was far from over. As Felix's team prepared to exfiltrate, John glanced back at the ruined chamber. This was just the beginning. The galaxy would soon learn what humanity was capable of, and for the first time in days, John felt a surge of hope. The Empire had laughed at him, but they wouldn't be laughing for long. The sleek black shuttle sliced through the void of space, its matte exterior absorbing the starlight rather than reflecting it. Inside the dimly lit cabin, Commander Nathan Felix adjusted his combat visor, the faint hum of the ship's systems the only sound. He sat at the helm of a team trained for the kind of operation most would call suicidal. Felix called it necessary. "ETA to target?" he asked, his voice steady and devoid of the nerves most commanders might feel under these circumstances. 7 minutes, replied Caleb Morgan, the team's tech specialist. His fingers flew over the holographic controls, streams of alien data cascading across the screen. "Their security grid's a mess after the distraction we triggered. I've got a narrow window to keep us invisible, but it won't last long." Roger Drake, the team sniper, leaned back in his seat, casually checking his rifle's chamber. "Plenty of time to make our entrance. Just hope the Diplomat's still breathing when we get there." "He'll be alive," Felix said firmly, his tone brooking no argument. John Warner didn't survive 20 years as Earth's top envoy by being easy to kill. Carl Ashton, the demolitions expert, gave a low chuckle as he secured his pack of explosives. "If they've roughed him up too much, I'll make sure their palace comes down around them as payback." The banter was familiar, almost comforting, a rhythm honed over years of missions that pushed them to their limits. Each man on Felix's team was a specialist, a product of Earth's relentless training programs designed to forge soldiers into living weapons. But their camaraderie wasn't born of orders. It was born of trust earned in fire and blood. As the shuttle neared the alien capital, Caleb's voice turned sharp. "We're in range. Deploying cloaking shields now. Once we land, we've got 10 minutes tops before their sensors recalibrate." "Understood," Felix said, rising from his seat. He pulled a sleek plasma rifle from the weapons rack and checked the power levels. "Drake, you're on Overwatch. Ashton, secure our exit. Morgan, stay on comms and keep the grid disrupted. I'll lead the extraction." The team responded in unison, their voices calm and professional. They had faced impossible odds before and walked away intact. This mission would be no different. The shuttle landed with a soft thud on the outskirts of the alien stronghold. The team disembarked in silence, their movements coordinated and precise. Felix took point, his every step calculated to avoid detection. The Galactic Empire's capital was a sprawling metropolis of shimmering spires and bioluminescent architecture. But here, in the shadow of the central palace, the opulence gave way to cold efficiency. The team's first objective was to disable the outer defenses, and Caleb wasted no time hacking into a nearby terminal. "Two guards patrolling the west gate," he murmured, his voice barely audible over the comms. "Drake, take them out." "On it," came the sniper's reply. Moments later, two muffled shots echoed faintly in the distance, and Caleb nodded in satisfaction. Clear. They moved quickly, slipping through the shadows like wraiths. Felix's focus never wavered, his mind calculating every variable. He had read the reports on the Galactic Empire's treatment of prisoners, and the thought of John enduring their cruelty was a fire in his chest. The Diplomat wasn't just a symbol of Earth's presence in the galaxy. He was Felix's friend. As they reached the palace's inner perimeter, the team encountered their first major obstacle, a patrol of heavily armed alien guards. The creatures stood over 7 feet tall, their exoskeletons gleaming under the harsh lights. Felix raised a clenched fist, signaling a halt. "Suggestions?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ashton grinned, holding up a small device. "I've got just the thing." He planted a compact explosive on a nearby structural support, adjusting the settings with practiced ease. "This'll create enough chaos to draw them away without bringing the whole palace down." "Yet." "Do it," Felix said. The explosion was perfectly controlled, a sharp crack that sent the guards scrambling toward the disturbance. The team slipped past unnoticed, their path to the palace's inner sanctum now clear. Inside, the architecture became even more imposing. The walls pulsed with a faint, otherworldly glow, and alien symbols etched into the surfaces seemed to hum with latent energy. Caleb's eyes flicked nervously to the readings on his device. Whatever power source they're using here, it's off the charts. I'll see if I can siphon some of it to overload their systems. "Just don't blow us up," Ashton muttered, earning a smirk from the tech specialist. The closer they got to John's last known location, the tighter Felix's focus became. He reviewed the mission details in his mind, searching for any angle they might have missed. The Empire's forces would be regrouping soon, and when they did, the team would have to fight their way out. They reached the detention wing without incident, but the tension in the air was palpable. Felix signaled for the team to halt, scanning the corridor ahead. "Morgan, confirm his location." Caleb worked quickly, his fingers a blur over his datapad. "Got him. Cell Block 3A, 20 meters ahead. Minimal guards, but they've got automated defenses online. Drake, take out the sentries. Ashton, be ready to neutralize those defenses on my signal," Felix ordered. The team moved like a well-oiled machine. Shots rang out as Drake dispatched the guards with lethal precision, while Ashton disabled the turrets with carefully placed charges. Felix led the way to John's cell, his heart pounding with a mix of urgency and determination. When the door slid open, John was slumped against the wall, his face battered but defiant. His eyes lit up when he saw Felix. "Took you long enough." Felix crouched beside him, checking his injuries. "You're a tough man to keep alive, John." The Diplomat managed a weak chuckle. "You're lucky I'm stubborn." Felix helped him to his feet, supporting his weight as they prepared to exfiltrate. But before they could move, an alarm blared throughout the palace, the sound reverberating like a death knell. "They've found us," Caleb said grimly, his voice crackling over the comms. Felix's jaw tightened. "Then we make them regret it. Let's move." As they raced toward the exit, the sound of approaching enemy reinforcements grew louder. Felix knew the hardest part of the mission was still ahead, but he also knew one thing with absolute certainty. They would not leave without John. The corridor ahead erupted in gunfire, forcing the team to take cover. Felix's voice cut through the chaos, calm and commanding. "Hold the line. We're almost there." Despite the odds, the team pressed forward, their training and resolve carrying them through. Each step brought them closer to freedom and the reckoning they intended to deliver. The air outside the palace was heavy with the acrid tang of smoke and ionized metal. John Warner limped along with Commander Nathan Felix's help. The Diplomat's body battered, but his resolve unbroken. The human team moved with precision, their formation tight, as they navigated the labyrinth of the Galactic Empire's capital. Time was their greatest enemy now. Every second drew reinforcements closer, threatening to cut off their escape. Ahead of them, Caleb Morgan's eyes darted across his holo display. I've got multiple heat signatures closing in fast. They're rerouting squads to cut us off. Nathan Felix adjusted his grip on John, his voice steady but urgent. Then we move faster. Ashton, any surprises you can leave for our friends? Carl Ashton grinned, the glint in his eye betraying his eagerness. Always. Give me 30 seconds. Peeling off from the group, Ashton knelt by a structural support beam. With a demolitions charge in hand, he worked quickly, wiring the explosive with a precision born of countless missions. This'll give them a warm welcome. The team pressed forward, the corridors narrowing into dimly lit tunnels. Each step echoed ominously, the sound amplified by the silence of the alien architecture. The faint hum of distant machinery served as a constant reminder that they were deep in hostile territory. Roger Drake, their sniper, fell back to cover the rear. His sharp eyes scanned the darkness, his rifle trained and ready. I don't like how quiet it's gotten, he murmured. Feels like we're walking into something. We are, Caleb confirmed, his voice tight. There's a choke point ahead, a bottleneck they'll use to trap us. I'm trying to reroute their systems, but they're catching on. Nathan's jaw tightened. We don't have time to wait. What's the backup plan? Caleb hesitated, then glanced at John. The power grid. If we overload it, it'll cause a blackout across the section. It won't last long, but it'll give us a window. John, despite his injuries, nodded. Do it. They wanted to make an example of me. Let's return the favor. The Diplomat's quiet determination spurred the team into action. Caleb sprinted ahead, his tools a blur as he tapped into an exposed power junction. Sparks flew and the lights flickered. A low rumble echoed through the corridor as the grid surged, plunging the immediate area into darkness. Felix activated the night vision in his visor, the green glow painting the world in shades of eerie clarity. Stay close. Ashton, you're on point. The demolitions expert took the lead, his instincts guiding them through the disorienting maze. Each turn brought new challenges, collapsed passages, automated defenses, and the relentless pressure of time. The blackout had bought them precious minutes, but the sound of alien forces regrouping in the distance was a constant reminder that their window was closing. As they neared the exit, a guttural roar shattered the tense silence. Felix signaled a halt, his hand raised in a clenched fist. From the shadows ahead emerged an alien brute, its massive frame blocking the corridor. The creature's exoskeleton gleamed, and its twin plasma blades hummed with deadly energy. Drake took aim, but Felix stopped him with a gesture. Hold fire. It's shielding itself. Carl Ashton assessed the situation, his mind racing. That armor's too thick for conventional rounds. We'll need to outmaneuver it. John, leaning against the wall for support, spoke up. I can distract it. You get behind. Felix shot him a look. You're in no condition. I wasn't asking for permission, John interrupted, his tone resolute. He grabbed a piece of broken metal from the floor and stepped into the brute's line of sight. Hey, over here. Let's see how tough you really are. The alien roared and charged, its plasma blades slicing through the air. John ducked under the first swing, his movements slower than they once were, but still effective. As the brute focused on him, Felix and Ashton flanked it. With a synchronized attack, Ashton detonated a small charge near its feet, staggering the creature long enough for Felix to drive his plasma knife into a vulnerable joint in its armor. The brute collapsed with a deafening crash, its blades dimming as its life force ebbed away. John leaned against the wall, his breath ragged but his expression triumphant. Told you I could handle it. Felix smirked despite himself. Remind me never to doubt you. The team pressed on, their pace quickening. Caleb's voice crackled over the comms. Exits just ahead, but they reinforced the perimeter. We'll need a diversion. Ashton's grin widened. Say no more. As they reached the final corridor, the demolitions expert set the last of his charges. The explosions rocked the facility, sending debris raining down and forcing the alien guards to scatter. The chaos cleared a path to the shuttle, which hovered just beyond the perimeter. Felix ushered John forward, covering him with precise bursts of fire. Drake provided overwatch, his rifle picking off enemies with deadly efficiency. Caleb kept the shuttle systems online, the engines humming with readiness. As they reached the shuttle's ramp, John paused, turning to Felix. "You didn't just come for me, did you?" Felix's gaze was unwavering. "We came to send a message." John nodded, a flicker of understanding passing between them. With a final burst of effort, they climbed aboard the shuttle, its doors sealing shut as the engines roared to life. From the cockpit, Caleb guided them into the sky, the capital city shrinking below them. Inside the shuttle, the team regrouped, their breaths heavy but their spirits high. John sat back, the weight of his ordeal finally lifting. Felix approached him, his voice quiet but firm. "This isn't over. The Empire will retaliate." "They'll try," John replied, his tone resolute. "But they'll learn what happens when you push humanity too far." As the shuttle soared into the stars, the team prepared for what lay ahead. They had achieved their objective, but the war was far from finished. And for the first time, the Galactic Empire had been reminded of a truth it had long ignored. Humans were not to be underestimated. The shuttle descended into the shadow of the looming Galactic Empire dreadnought, its engines muted to a whisper by Caleb's careful modifications. From the cockpit, the scale of the massive warship was daunting, a hulking beast of polished black steel bristling with weapons and layered defenses. Yet, for all its power, it now bore a single fatal flaw. The human team knew exactly where to strike. Nathan Felix tightened his grip on his plasma rifle, his gaze steady as he surveyed the team. They were battle-worn but unbroken, their resolve sharpened by the mission stakes. John Warner, seated across from him, winced as Caleb adjusted the temporary bandages on his injuries. Despite his pain, his eyes burned with determination. "This is more than a rescue now," John said, his voice low but firm. "They've seen what we can do. They'll retaliate unless we take their teeth away." Felix nodded. "We've got one shot to cripple their command structure. Taking out their flagship sends the right message." Carl Ashton checked the last of his charges, his grin a sharp contrast to the tension in the air. "I've got enough fireworks to make sure they never forget us." The shuttle's landing struts engaged with a soft hiss as it touched down inside a hangar, its cloaking shield flickering off. The team moved with practiced precision, disembarking in silence. Felix led them forward, every step deliberate as they infiltrated the ship's inner corridors. The Empire's forces had regrouped after the palace attack, but their defenses, hastily deployed, were scattered and vulnerable. Roger Drake scanned the path ahead, his sniper rifle at the ready. "2 patrols up ahead. I can clear them." "Do it quietly," Felix ordered, motioning for the others to hold position. Drake moved like a shadow, his silenced weapon firing with barely a whisper. Moments later, the corridor was clear and the team advanced. Caleb's holodisplay flickered to life, mapping the ship's layout and highlighting their objective, the central command hub. "They're beefing up security around the command deck," Caleb murmured. "Looks like they're expecting trouble." "They won't expect us," Felix replied. "Ashton, what's the ETA on those charges?" "Already ahead of you," Ashton said, pulling a small detonator from his vest. "Just say the word." The team reached the final corridor leading to the command hub, where a formidable line of alien soldiers stood guard. Their armor shimmered with energy shields, and their weapons glowed ominously. Felix raised a fist, signaling the team to halt. "We don't have the firepower to punch through," Caleb whispered. "Not without drawing the entire ship down on us." John stepped forward, his voice steady despite his weakened state. "Then we give them a reason to look the other way." Felix frowned. "John, they won't kill me," John interrupted. Not if they think I'm valuable. I'll buy you time." Before Felix could protest, John stepped into the corridor, his hands raised in mock surrender. The alien guards stiffened, their weapons trained on him. The diplomat's voice echoed, calm but commanding. "Chancellor Varkin will want to hear what I have to say," he announced. "You don't get to kill me without his approval." The guards hesitated, their confusion giving the team the moment they needed. Felix led them into a side passage, bypassing the choke point as John kept the guards distracted. Every second felt like an eternity, but they reached the command hub undetected. Inside, the heart of the dreadnought was a marvel of alien engineering. Holographic displays covered the walls, and streams of data flowed through the air in translucent ribbons. At the center stood Chancellor Varkin, flanked by his elite guard, his amphibious features twisted into a snarl as he turned to face the intruders. "You should have run while you had the chance," Varkin growled. "Now you'll die screaming." Felix stepped forward, his weapon aimed squarely at the alien leader. "We're not here to run. We're here to end this." The command hub erupted into chaos as Varkin's guards attacked. Plasma bolts lit the room in bursts of violent light as the human team fought with ruthless precision. Ashton's explosives tore through defensive barriers, while Drake's sniper fire picked off key targets with surgical accuracy. Caleb worked furiously to disable the ship's systems, his hands a blur over the alien console. Amid the carnage, Felix and Varkin locked eyes, their conflict distilled into a single moment of raw determination. The alien leader lunged, his energy blades slicing through the air. Felix met him head-on, their weapons clashing in a dazzling display of sparks and fury. "You humans are pests," Varkin hissed, his strikes growing more desperate. "You don't belong in this galaxy." Felix countered with a swift blow, forcing the Chancellor back. "We belong anywhere we decide to stand." As their duel raged, the rest of the team held the line. Caleb shouted over the chaos, his voice urgent. "I've got control of the ship's reactor. We can overload it, but we'll have minutes to get out." "Do it," Felix ordered, his focus never wavering from Varkin. The alien leader snarled, his movements growing erratic as Felix pressed the advantage. With a final, decisive strike, Felix disarmed him, sending the energy blade clattering to the floor. He leveled his plasma rifle at Varkin's chest, his voice cold and unyielding. "This is for Earth." The shot rang out, and Varkin crumpled, his reign ending in an instant. Felix turned to his team, his voice sharp. "Time to go." Ashton triggered the charges he had planted, their detonations rippling through the ship. The human team sprinted through the corridors, the dreadnought trembling as its systems began to fail. Caleb's voice crackled over the comms. "Shields are down. We've got a clear path." They reached the shuttle with seconds to spare, the engines roaring to life as the ship's reactor began to overload. Felix glanced back at the dreadnought, now a burning hulk against the backdrop of space. The message was clear. Humanity would not be trifled with. As the shuttle ascended into the stars, John sat beside Felix, his expression weary but satisfied. "They'll remember this day." Felix nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "And they'll think twice before underestimating us again." The human team fell into silence, their mission complete but their war far from over. In the vastness of space, Earth's resolve burned brighter than ever, a beacon of defiance in the face of tyranny.